in research. We're already talking about, plagiarism. That is will be very. It is like a moving target. Where do you start calling it plagiarism? And that those are decisions many campuses and faculty have yet to make, and then emerging challenges and potential solutions. We are very happy to have you. You are 143 of us with that right now, but our sessions mostly have attracted over 200 of you from multiple countries of the world. Right now, the registrations are 1,000 plus, and there are 900 from 65 national universities and another 150 from 35 international universities. And now about Ali. Ali, I have come, you told me that you were stuck en route from UK to Pakistan in Istanbul, and you were in a hotel trying to move with the session. And a little bit about you, because I see your CV, even though you just finished your PhD from the University College of London, I think very recently. Was it in 2021?
2023, actually, last year.
Oh, wow. But your CV is full of work that you have been doing all along, and your PhD is in AI and education. So who better than you to help us navigate through some choppy waters of AI? You are also a research degree committee member at the UCL, University College London Institute of Education. You have developed a profile system for doctoral students. You are a staff student consultative committee member also in the Doctoral School of University College London. You got the Global Advantage Gold Award from Warwick University. Wow. For working with students with diverse cultural environments and integrating with the local communities. You have experimented and fine-tuned a number of open source large language models, which I will never be able to understand what is written there. You helped us also in doing a session in our AI course, which was very, very powerful. And you were doing this, of course, like all our experts, pro bono as a service for exchange of knowledge economy. And extremely thankful once again. And you haven't seen the last of us, because I think in you we have found a treasure trove of resource, and we are very, very thankful. So Ali, I hope you have rested and slept. Over to you. And I think you can share your screen if you want to. We have 161 participants now.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Sana. Thank you for the kind words. So let me just share my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Ali Chaudhary, and so I'll be presenting the role of research ethics in the context of AI-driven world, and how the ethics of AI actually fit into the context of research ethics, and how for us as academics, as researchers, as lecturers, and mentors for our students, how can we kind of make sure that we utilize AI in a way like empowers our learners, empowers our students, rather than kind of trying to replace them, or rather than kind of, playing a negative role. And there's a very thin line between the two. And this is what I will try to kind of, I will try to create this thin line where you can understand that how you should be using AI in the context of research ethics, and how you can, and to get a better understanding of ethical AI, and what that means in the context of research. So, quickly about the agenda for today. Firstly, we talk about the uses of AI in academia and research, which I'm sure all of you would be kind of aware of, up to an extent. Then we will move on to the need for research ethics for AI systems, right? Then we will talk about the limitations of generative AI, like foundation models, like ChatGPT, like large language models that a lot of us use now in our daily lives. Then, how do these limitations of AI systems actually impact the academia and research, like the work that we do? How do those limitations impact our work? And this is where plagiarism actually comes in, right? And how can we kind of, prevent plagiarism? How can we use AI in a manner that, it kind of improves our productivity? It helps us save time, and it improves the quality of work that we do. And then, like I have like also slide on the plan of action for academics, like what we can do to kind of, utilize AI in the best possible manner. Then there's one slide on research pal, which is like a generative AI tool for researchers that I've been working on. And then we will conclude the session. So let's dive in. Uses of AI in academia and research, right? So we all know like AI can be utilized in many different ways in the research workflows that we do, right? Starting from, for example, literature search, and you might have come across some of the tools like LS, like Consensus, where like you can search for, you can just type in your research question, they will give you papers, but at the same time they would also give you the summaries of the papers. They will enable you to kind of interact with the papers. You can ask question and you get like useful insights from there. So for example, if I'm looking for a research paper on ethical AI, and if I get a particular paper, I can ask a specific question from that paper and see like whether this particular research paper has the answer to that question or not. And this is a very, very powerful concept, like compared to even like 3-4 years ago, like where we had to literally skim through the entire paper to see like if this particular paper answers the question that we are looking for. So like literature search is a very like useful method, like where we tend to use AI to save us time. Then we have come across tools like where AI is also being used in research for generating entire literature reviews, right? Now we do know like AI comes with its limitations, but there are organizations like we have also been working on this for the past like 1 year now, where like you can generate an entire literature review with like 400-500 words with proper citations from the papers, and this literature review is actually generated from the research papers with like proper authentic citations and link back to the sources for the academic papers, right? Then we have research articles where like we can use AI for writing to improve our writing. A lot of us, almost like everyone over here in the room, as English as this like second language. So for us, like to improve the writing, our tone, AI can play a very, very important role. And like I will show some like research which has some very recent research like earlier this year, which has shown that how the use of LLMs and artificial intelligence in academic papers has increased over the past couple of years. And then like paper insights, like I remember like when I was starting my PhD back in 2018, towards the end of 2018, were there like in the beginning, especially when you're starting a PhD, you're going through a lot of literature, and you have to kind of read a lot of papers, and especially the papers that are technical. You really need to kind of get an understanding of how the methodology and experiments work for a particular finding, and it becomes like really, really challenging and very time consuming. But now we have these features of paper insights that are offered by a number of AI tools, where you can use AI tool, and with just a click of a button, it will literally give you like insights about like what is the methodology for a particular research paper, what are the contributions of that paper. It would even like generate the limitations of the paper for you. So for example, if the sample size that the researchers have used is like too small, or if the sample size belongs to only a particular like demography or like particular location, it would kind of point these kind of limitations out. So like going through the literature, getting an understanding of the research papers has become a lot easier these days. And last but not the least, accessibility, right? Like we can use AI for translation to get a better understanding of like what researchers are trying to what is the point, or what are the findings that researchers are trying to convey from text to voice. And I know like there are specific tools within research, like where you can literally kind of just upload your research paper, and it will turn that research paper into a podcast, and you can like just put on your headphones, do your work, and just listen to the research paper while doing your work. And last but not the least, like explanations. You can ask AI to kind of explain particular concepts to you if they're hard to understand, especially, and this comes in quite handy, especially for technical papers, for in STEM discipline.
Ali, you have gone static. I think if you unvideo yourself, your net connection might be a bit better. I know you told me that your net might be an issue in the hotel, and I guess you are frozen. Yeah, I know. Something is wrong, definitely, because you are in another country, another place. Perhaps, Ali, you will have to log off and then log in again. Yeah, that's what he's doing. He's the digital guy, so I'm sure he'll figure. There was a question from Noor. Is there somebody else who we can talk about it? Noor from Habib University talked about a student is using, consensus AI for his work, and he saves time, gets copy pasted it. Will it count as plagiarism? Absolutely, yes. But can you detect it? That depends on the human element. That is so, because copy pasting is probably clear, like from any other source. Would somebody else like to say something in the chat? For literature search, consensus app. There are lots of, the best thing is if you have a Gemini or a Chat GPT, account, free account, if you put in the AI and say, give me a free top 3 best free AI tools for so and so purpose, mind you, lo and behold, you will get a whole list. And so you will have to find one. I have seen that usually you need to go through 3 different research AI apps, but I found a couple that are very good. One is the Research Rabbit. I think there is another one that is Connected Papers, and a couple of others that actually are very, very good. They give you a brief, and then there are some that you can give you a visualization by ear of the different articles in the same, system. And Ali, you are back. If you unvideo yourself, perhaps that might be
Yeah,
better. Yeah.
I'll do. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm actually like in a hotel room. I'm just in between travels, so
Yeah, I know that.
yeah,
We
just bear
will.
with me.
There is no other speaker after you, so if we stretch a bit, those that can stay on would love to stay on, I'm sure. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll just keep my video off. So I was talking about this, like, very recent research that came from Stanford University, like a couple of months ago, where they tried to map the use of large language models in research. And this kind of clearly shows that researchers are actively using, like, tools like ChatGPT, tools like Claude, tools like Gemini to empower their research, right? Which is great. But this research also kind of brought in some interesting insights based on the different sectors that we have within research. For example, firstly, like they found out there was a steady increase in the LLM usage, right? Then they noticed, like, the fastest growth of LLMs was particularly in the domain of computer science. Not surprising, because the people who are usually using computer science, like, they are the early adopters of AI systems as well. So not surprising that they're using these AI systems. Then they noticed, like, in some like domains like mathematics, the use of LLMs was comparatively, like, lesser compared to like other disciplines like computer science. And this can partially be because like mathematics papers can be really technical. They can be very, very theoretical with formulas and, with theorems in them. So like, the LLMs users is quite limited in that context. And then, like they also find this interesting insight, like, for some of the papers that have like their first authors as people like who publish quite often, or like, who are publishing papers in like more crowded research areas, or like who publish papers of shorter lengths. For these kind of, papers, there is like more frequent use of large language models. So, some quite interesting insights there, like regarding how these large language models and AI systems are already impacting like academia and research. But like, so that's great, like, we all are using AI systems in one form or another. We are trying to kind of, improve our productivity, save us time, which is great. But AI systems do have some limitations, and that is where, like, we need research ethics for these AI systems as well, right? And just to kind of give you a quick overview of what we mean when we talk about ethical AI, is that usually when we build an AI system, no matter how complex it is, like at a very high level, this is what a typical AI system's workflow looks like, right? This is how we develop an AI system. We first collect the data, we process it, clean it, then we kind of input that data into a machine learning model, right over there. Then we train the model, we evaluate the model, evaluate its performance. And once the organizations or the data scientists are happy with it, we kind of deploy that model in production using tools like AWS or Google Cloud or like Microsoft Azure. But all these different stages have their own limitations, right? In data, when we collect data, we are like that. It has its own inherent limitations because it will be a sample of the real world. It will have certain biases. It will have a bias towards groups. For example, if we collect data from from Pakistan, that data set will be very limited to Pakistani culture and the language that we speak, within a particular demography, within a particular area. Similarly, when we move on to machine learning models, these models are many times considered like black box models where we don't really understand how they work, especially models like neural networks. And lastly, when we kind of deploy these models over there, also they can have very uncertain behavior. Like they can act in a very strange manner where their performance can really deteriorate in real world. So we need to be kind of quite careful when we even after deployment of these models. And we can see some of these. I've shared some examples of how these AI systems have actually gone wrong in the real world as well. For example, during COVID, the UK government tried to use AI models to actually make predictions about students' grades. For A levels, and now A levels is a very kind of important year in any student's life, because that the grades for this particular year for A2 year really determine whether which university a particular student is going to go into. But then even the UK government was using it, they have all the best resources in the world, they have all the money, right? But they still could not figure it out correctly. And once they kind of deployed the tool, they realized that the tool was actually biased. There were protests all around the UK. The tool was biased against certain groups, against certain schools, and it was limiting the potential of certain schools to send students to high-end universities like Oxford, Cambridge, LSE, UCL, right? So the government had to really pull off that tool, and they had to replace the predictions of the tools by students, by the predictions from the teachers. Right. So this is a classic example of where AI has actually failed in real world, despite the fact that it was like it was developed with all the resources that one can kind of ask for. Then we all use LLMs, but we know like even for large language models like ChatGPT, like they can have their limitations. And there was this very interesting model that was actually published from Meta, from Facebook. And this was around the same time when ChatGPT came along. But they literally had to take this model down because this model had like a lot of limitations, right? It was kind of racist. It was kind of making up citations. It was allocating the names of researchers to wrong publications. So it had like all the problems that one can imagine. And earlier, like when they launched the tool, there was so much excitement by researchers and everyone, and people started using it, and everyone was happy. But then when people actually started using it, they realized some researchers pointed out even their own work is being attributed to other researchers, which was like very surprising. And after a couple of weeks, Meta literally had to put that model down. Like they literally removed that model from the internet.
Ali, I'm
Yes.
sorry to cut you, but
Yeah,
if you
please.
sort of slow down your pace, because there are lots of new words that people might not know, it would become easy to
Sure.
understand. I have got a comment saying that we are unable to understand, and there's also a bit of choppiness. And so a bit slower perhaps would be helpful. Thank you so much.
Sure. No worries. Yeah, so Galactica, like it was a model that was published by Facebook, and they had to kind of take it down because this was a model just like ChatGPT, and this model was particularly built for researchers, and they had to take it down because it had its limitations, right? So even when we use these kind of tools like large language models like ChatGPT, they have their limitations that we need to be careful about, right? And but even like the current tools that we use in our daily lives, like ChatGPT, which are free to use, and a lot of researchers we know around us are actually using them and utilizing these tools. Even they can fake citations, right? There was this very interesting research done in which they kind of showed that the tool was kind of not just making up stuff about research findings, but it was also kind of hallucinating regarding the authors and the people who actually came up with that particular research. So there can be these inherent limitations in these AI systems, which we need to be very careful about. Now, what are some of these limitations of generative AI models? Can I have a couple of thoughts on this from people? If anyone has any thoughts, any limitations that you have come across while using, I'll just take viewpoints. of a couple of people?
I don't see any. They are biased. Yes, they are biased, but in what way? Ali said one, that there is a racial bias. And if you go to a drawing text, Ali, I have seen, and I said, draw me a picture of a sad Asian, South Asian female. It put up a picture of a Japanese, Chinese, prominently
Yeah.
Chinese sort of a picture. So, there is absolutely the cultural bias. They're not, one writes, they are not able to differentiate with the quality of research, and summaries with us be inaccurate. What do you say about that, Ali?
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. I actually have a very similar example, like, where this racial bias is kind of, like very dominant in these systems. I have this example, like from a couple of research papers, like if you ask these models to generate images of a certain kind of people, they have the stereotypes
Yeah,
that they follow, right? And
yeah.
these stereotypes have actually come in from the data that is collected from the real world. But, despite that, we as humans do know, like, there might be a bias over here, and we can kind of take actions to prevent that. But large language models or these foundation models, they don't know about this, right? For example, if you ask a model to kind of, draw a picture of a poor white person, even in that case, they would draw the pictures of people who are actually brown and black. But they would have this white complexion because of light on their faces, right? It wouldn't kind of, draw a person of a picture of a white person. And similarly, and these biases are like really ingrained into these systems. And for us as researchers who kind of, aim to take a particular field forward, like, we kind of extend the discovery of knowledge. For us, this can be really, really dangerous, because if we kind of, lay the foundation of our research on these kind of systems, this means that this bias will be kind of, will kind of spread out in the research that we are doing. Right.
There's
So,
one from American Al Ahwan University, a friend from Morocco, that they can hallucinate, but I guess you'll be talking about that in your next slides.
exactly. Like another very common problem with these systems is actually hallucination. This is literally the next slide that I have, where these systems, make up stuff. And there has been, and this is a very active area of research, and it still has not been addressed. Right? We might see all these like very fancy models from OpenAI, from Anthropic, from Google. Like, they can do magical stuff. They can identify objects within videos, and they can give a call, and they can talk like just like humans. But these systems, one of the very like fundamental limitations these systems have is hallucinations, which basically means they make up stuff. They kind of daydream, right? I have like some examples over here, like from the research, which also kind of shows like what are the different types of hallucinations that they do, and how you can kind of and then there are certain ways that you can kind of prevent them through prompt engineering. But the researchers who have literally built these models, they are trying to figure out why these models hallucinate and how they can prevent it. So it is not a solved problem. It is an inherent problem that is in there in the latest and the most developed models that you can access, like GPT-4 Turbo, like Claude Opus, like or Gemini 1.5. All these latest models have this problem with them. And one of the reasons like Google is quite slow to actually make their models public is because of these kind of limitations. So, like for example, one of the limitations these models have is called like context hallucination, where like if you ask a model like how does yoga help with reducing stress and anxiety, it would kind of just come up gibberish like some practitioners claim advanced experience like astral projection, which kind of is not relevant to the topic at all. But the model would just kind of come up with something like this. Then there are semantic hallucinations that the model kind of tends to come up with as well. So if you ask it like a very simple question of how does a car engine work, while the model might give you like really nice explanation and like 5 paragraphs, bullet points, literally telling you how the car engine is working, but over there it might kind of just start daydreaming in the middle and might hallucinate, where it can come up with stuff like mention terms which kind of make no sense in the context of a car engine. Right. Then we have these content hallucinations, where like you if you ask like what are some of the solutions to mitigate the effects of climate change, would again just make up stuff, which kind of makes no sense, which is not practical, right? Because these models do not understand the physical world. They understand the internet, they understand the text on which they are trained, but they don't understand how the dynamics of the physical world, like really tend to work. So if you ask it like how do you mitigate climate change, they might kind of come up with solutions that are not practical at all, like use giant air purifiers that roam the earth, sucking up the carbon dioxide. So which kind of makes no sense. And then last but not least, but also the most dangerous one is they can also come up with factual hallucinations. They can literally lie to you. So if you ask these models any question about like history or something like that, they would kind of make up stuff which would just be an outright lie. Right. For example, if you the researchers for this paper, they asked the model like what was the outcome of the Battle of Waterloo, and they would say it was won by British Army led by Napoleon Bonaparte. But those of us who are students of history kind of know that Napoleon was actually French emperor, right? Not a British emperor. So a fundamental flaw in there when the model is actually narrating history. So it can. Yep.
Yeah, Ali Noor from Habib University has said, what LLM produce these responses? Is there a certain type, or are you generalizing?
I'm generalizing. Any LLM would, and the purpose. So this research from from ChatGPT, I think. But this problem of hallucination is in all the models. Whether you use GPT-4 Turbo, whether you use Claude Opus, all the models hallucinate. You can try to prevent it. You can try to mitigate it through prompt engineering, and we can do fine tuning and go to more technical details of trying to prevent that. But there are no guarantees. These models do every LLM that is out there currently, whether it is open source or whether it is proprietary model, they hallucinate. They have this limitation. And it's a very, very active area of research where researchers are actually trying to prevent this in all these big organizations like OpenAI and Claude and Anthropic.
Habib also from Noor also says that I have not experienced ChatGPT hallucinating in response. How does the car engine work? But that's a very technical question. Why would you think there would be? Ali, how would you respond to that?
People use LLMs for many different use cases to generate ideas, to come up with stuff, to ask factual questions. And for us as researchers, it is kind of good to know what the strengths and weaknesses of these models are. For some kind of questions, they might work quite well. For example, if you ask it to brainstorm a research idea, that might work quite well. But if you ask it to explain a mathematical theorem, that is where the model might kind of deviate, and it might kind of come up with gibberish. So we need to be kind of careful on how we utilize them. But I think the limitations of these models, although they are quite well documented, irrespective of that, I would strongly recommend that if you kind of generate something from ChatGPT or from any model, it is very important for us to kind of validate any kind of information that comes in from there. The role of these models, and I will come to that towards the end as to what we as academics should do, to be to actually empower us to kind of where we take the final decision and we review the output of these models before we actually use in our work or in our research.
Yeah, thank you.
Then another limitations of these systems are black box. We don't really understand how these systems usually tend to work, right? And this is the experts in the field who have been working in this for the past 3-4 decades, who have been pioneers in kind of moving the field forward, especially neural networks, which are the backbone of all the latest milestones that we see in AI systems, like Jeffrey Hinton, like Yoshua Bengio, like Jan LeCun. These people have claimed that these models are very difficult to understand, and we still are trying to understand why these models make predictions they make. In a sense, in very simplistic terms, in the AI community, we joke around saying that at the end of the day, any large language model is literally predicting the next word, right? At the end of the day, they just predict the next token, which is basically a word. But the accuracy with which they predict it is so good that it kind of makes sense, and they generate literature which kind of can be quite useful for us. But we don't really know why these models work so well. And these companies these days, they are just kind of following the laws of scalability, where they just kind of input more data, they increase the size of the models, and that gives them better and better results. Because these models are black box, which is kind of we need to be very careful in how we kind of use them, right? Because this also means that these models can be quite unpredictable when they are deployed in production.
So what you're saying is that this black box is right now a repository of all the information that's coming in, and actually can have many limitations. Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry if I've lost your point, Ali.
Exactly. This is what I meant. Like, so for example, a model like ChatGPT or a model like GPT-4 or like, Claude Opus, these models are considered a snapshot of the internet. These models have been trained on the entire internet's text data, and they are just, you can say, like basically a zipped folder or a condensed version of the entire internet, right? So everything that is out there in the internet, like, good, bad, these models have kind of learned from it. And they will just spit out, like, and based on this learning, they will make the next prediction.
And
so they are like,
and that is why they're sort of saying, do not put in personal information, so that it doesn't go into that black box and disclose your identity or something. Or is that, how does that work?
Exactly, that's a great point. Yeah, we don't share your personal information for companies. For companies who work on, like, highly technical stuff, and who have patents, they are kind of strictly, like, forbidden their employees from using some of these proprietary models. Why? Because if you ask it a particular question, for example, how does a car engine work or something like that, these models will learn from the company's data that you have input into the model, and there is very likely a chance then, if someone, like, I put in my company's data asking to give it better context and get a better response from the model to write, a really nice prompt. But, someone like in US might kind of ask a question similar to mine, and, the model might end up sharing that information, like, which I had inputted with that person. So there can be, like, some very serious privacy and data breaches that can happen. That is why, like, initially there was also a lot of uproar from the companies, and these big organizations have started making proprietary models, like small proprietary models for large enterprises. So they can have their own models, and their data or their models are not used by anyone else outside their organization.
But that brings back to the question of companies, mega companies like Facebook, who use it for their benefit, but not the consumer's benefit. And so I think we still have a lopsided field whereby the user is not protected, but the company doling it out protects itself. And I think that's the balance that we have to correct as well.
Exactly. And we need to be, as researchers, because a lot of work that we do is, like, is kind of patent level or, IP level, because we are researching, we are kind of, finding some really interesting insights, and we are taking a field forward. For us, this is even more important, because this means that literally our research, our findings can be shared by others, right? So we need to be, like, like a lot more careful about these. Some companies have started taking measures to kind of prevent that. For example, like, now OpenAI claims that, for if you buy their subscription, like, $20 per month, and you use their models, in that case, they will not kind of, use your data to train their models. So, like, they are coming up with measures to prevent that. But in its natural form, these LLMs do kind of, grab the information from one person, and they can share it with another person.
So that means there comes the issue of equity. We do not live in an equitable world where people like us who cannot afford to pay for will have, by some reason, get all the slips and then, problems, because we do not get the best quality, we do not get and our data might not be secure. So I think the issue of equity has become another big issue with, AI.
I completely agree. Exactly. Like, and this is like a very major concern for political scientists, for humanitarian organizations, that this will become a very major source of inequitable world. Right, where people who have access to these models, they will be able to perform in a significantly better way than people who don't have access to these models. And at a national level, this has now become a national security risk for a lot of countries. For example, UK has kind of investing billions of dollars in AI safety and LLM. UK government is investing this for the first time in their history. A lot of national governments are building their own nationalized large language models, which their people can use. Right? So India is building its own LLM in its own local languages, which people can use to empower their people. UAE is building its own national LLM, right? And I think I heard, like, probably somewhere in Pakistan, like, probably Jaj is doing something like that as well. I don't know, like,
they have got a task force committee sort of a thing on AI, but I'm unable to find any more information, and I don't think it will go far. But anyway, that will be required to be done. So we become even more, closed walls, a system where we are limiting ourselves and our people and others into sort of poking into us, but it also creates walls in
Exactly.
knowledge creation. So yes, thank you.
And like not a lot of countries can, like, and not just at individual levels, but also at, like, state level. Like not a
Yeah.
lot of countries can actually afford to train these models. For example,
Yeah.
according to some estimates, GPT-4 model from OpenAI took $400 million in kind of training that one model, right? And GPT-5 will cost a lot more, and ChatGPT took 100 million. Right, so this
Yeah.
was GPT-4 was 4 times more than ChatGPT. We don't know how much
Wow.
the GPT, like, GPT-5 will cost. And there are organizations like, we have countries like who are trying to kind of get $1 billion, $2 billion investments, and there are companies, startups, such as, like, XAI, who are raising $5 billion, $6 billion in funding literally within months.
Wow.
So it's a very
Yeah.
competitive, like, it's a very competitive landscape, because all these, this is like, we are living for this is like, same moment that we have the dot-com bubble, like in early
Yeah.
2000s, when internet kind of
Yeah.
came into being. So the
And
impact will be like,
absolutely, and it's very volatile right now. It could go
exactly,
either way. And so I
exactly,
think this is the time when maximum security, safety, privacy issues thrive till we organize ourselves better. I think that's the problem. Yeah,
exactly,
absolutely.
exactly. So now, like, so how do these limitations of AI systems impact the academia? One thing that we have noticed, so I kind of earlier shared some research showing that there has been an increase in the use of LLMs in research and in academic papers. Now we're also seeing there is another research which shows that the usage of certain terms has significantly increased in scientific publications. So there was this research from the Scientific American, which basically shows how, like, there has been an increase in the usage of certain words from 2022 onwards, right? Since LLMs became, like, popular, since ChatGPT came into being,
Hmm.
right? For example, in, like, AI associated adjectives, they notice, like, innovative is being used a lot more frequently. You can how
Wow.
they spike the use of this word in academic literature. You can see notable, how there's a spike in in the use of notable,
Okay.
which is another, like, AI adjective. Intricate, like, another term which, like, LLMs use quite a lot, and there has been a significant increase in 1 year of the usage of intricate. Before that, you can see it was a flat line, but as we reached, like, 2022, 2023, like, there was a spike.
Hmm.
It kind of went up, and it's same with, like, AI associated adverbs as well. Like,
Oh,
with some
wow.
terms like scholarly, which, like, humans don't use very often or very frequently,
Hmm.
right? But these LLMs, they'll use these terms quite a lot. So that is why these terms have started appearing in the scientific literature, like, very frequently. Like, meticulously, you can see the spike in meticulously, how
So we,
there has been an
by
increase.
the same virtue, these are the words to see in a text to find out if there was a possibility of AI use. So that's one way of trying to understand that if the text uses these words again and again, then probably it's an AI generated option, right?
Exactly, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. And
Okay.
I think, and there is, and this, now I will come to, like, the crux of the matter, which is basically plagiarism. Right, how this directly impacts us, right? So one of the ways in which the limitations of AI systems impact academia is actually through plagiarism. And plagiarism can be defined in, like, many different ways, but I will try to kind of use a very simple definition which is used by Oxford University, like, for their students, like, where they believe that it is presenting the work or ideas from another source as your own, with or without the consent by the author, right? And they also include the text generated from artificial intelligence in this, right? So even if you're using, like, these LLMs or large language models in your work, you can kind of actually you can kind of, you need to cite it, you need to tell them, you need to have this acknowledgement that you use these tools. And I think it is worth mentioning over here, like, I also know that Oxford University is also probably the first ones to become the clients, like an institutional educational client of OpenAI, where they've kind of bought the ChatGPT, like, enterprise license to give everyone access within their university. So, like, even though they have, like, this very strict plagiarism policy, like, where AI systems, text generated from AI is also considered a part of plagiarism, but still, they understand that these models, these systems are here to stay. We can't, like, prevent our students from, like, from using them. When ChatGPT came along in the beginning, some universities, some institutions outrightly banned it, right? And then they have to kind of lift those bans, because they realize they can't really prevent anyone from using it. Number one. Number two, I think this is a very important aspect for us as well, is to know that there are no tools that can tell you with 100% accuracy that this text is generated by a large language model and this text is generated by a human, which basically means that when we can't differentiate between the text generated from an AI or text generated from a human, this means that we can't really penalize a human for this. We can't penalize a student for this because we are never sure about this. Any tools who do make these kind of claims, they would still have a certain probability, like 70-80%, and I would still doubt that, right? And this also this also with this, like, we also face this very serious risk that we might end up allocating some text which is actually generated by a human to a large language model and end up wrongly penalizing the student or the learner because of that. So we need to be very careful about this. So once we have defined the term, what do we mean by plagiarism in this context, we will see LLMs are being used in the literature. And in the beginning, in the first two slides, I've mentioned how AI is to be used in research and how we are using it to optimize our research workflows. But it has to be used with some with some caution. We need to be kind of careful how we utilize it to actually empower our work. And here are a couple of examples where AI is actually used, but it was used without any human inputs, right? People just kind of generated something from a large language model and literally just copy pasted it into their research paper. And unfortunately, these papers also got published. Right, one of them has already been taken down because it kind of there was a lot of protest on social media by researchers and academics, and you can see with that paper on the left, which has already been taken down. So if you go to this link which I have on the slide, it will say this paper has been taken down. The right one, I think, is still up there. You can see in study the management of bilateral iatrogenic. I am very sorry but I do not have access to real-time information or patient-specific data, as I am an AI large language model. This is literally the first paragraph of a research paper that got published, right? So we're here this would directly go into the definition of plagiarism, right? And it should have been desk rejected. I don't know how it got published in Elsevier, which is quite strange. The second option over here, it again showed the way that these LLMs generate their responses. You can clearly tell this is something which is generated by LLM. And those people who use these models a lot, they would, even when you're reading a student's submission, a student's essay, you can tell this particular, the way that it is framed, you can tell this is actually generated by a large language model. Now there are ways to get around. How do you kind of prevent that? How do you use the text generated from these systems in a productive manner? You kind of spend some time learning how you can get the most out of these tools. So there's this new skill that we have to learn, right? To basically use these tools in a manner that kind of increases our productivity. And for that, we have to invest some time, not in writing, but in prompt tuning, right? So we have to define a prompt in a manner where
that our accents are different and our speeds is different, and they prompt. So Ali, if you could sort of slow down a bit, please. I know you have a lot to say. You've said, yeah, yes, he is too fast. Now the verdict is there. So over to you, Ali.
Yeah, so what I was basically saying was that so these are classic examples where plagiarism has been kind of has been done using large language models, right? Where researchers have just picked the text from the just picked the output from a large language model such as ChatGPT, and they've just copy pasted that onto their research paper without actually going through it. Now, you should always remember that the role of AI should be to augment our intelligence. It should be to increase our intelligence, to empower us rather than replace us. Over here, and if we don't spend, so we might not be spending a lot of time doing the groundwork of writing, but we have to spend a good amount of time reviewing what AI is actually producing. Right? And we need to be kind of quite careful as to how we kind of utilize these systems. So this is a classic example where plagiarism might actually happen in this context. So what can we as academics do, right? What can we kind of do to prevent these kind of things? How can we use AI systems in a manner that that increase our productivity and help us save time? So we should be kind of, doing it firstly to augment our intelligence. And first and foremost, our role should be to kind of, use AI to become a better researcher. And we should see like, if we are using these systems in a manner that kind of, have improved our research workflow. How do you do that? You can kind of, break that down into like different subcomponents. Firstly, like, whether you are an avid reader or not, right? So you can use AI systems to go through literature quickly, right? You can get extract insights from literature, get a better understanding of how, like, what are the findings, what are the contributions, what are the methodology that has been used by different research papers. You can use AI for admin tasks as well and save time. For example, like, for reference management, for saving all the for managing your library of resources and citations, right? There are tools out there which you can integrate with Zotero and Mendeley, and extract insights from the papers, from these like libraries, from these academic databases, right? You can extract insights from them. So we should be using these AI systems, these AI tools in a manner that help us actually improve the different components of the research workflows that we are working with, right? So I can use, for example, AI systems to find relevant literature, to quickly skim through the literature and extract relevant insights, to help me write literature review, right? Not to just write literature review, but to help me write literature review. So it should be like my responsibility about the text that I am writing. And if I generate something from the AI, I should kind of, tweak it and make sure that, it kind of suits the tone in which I'm writing my, like, my content. So this example, which I showed earlier, like this is the classic example of how not to use like AI systems, right? Where they can kind of, very clearly go wrong, and we need to be careful how do we kind of prevent that. So then I have this, like, one slide of this tool that I've been working on with some researchers and some like research engineers, where we have developed this tool, like where you can do literature reviews. You can kind of extract paper insights. You can integrate your libraries, like, Zotero and Mendeley with ResearchPal, and you can kind of, write your papers over there, like improve your writing, improve the tone of your writing. So, all that entire research workflow that you have, from literature search to literature review to extracting insights from the paper to managing the library, you can do all of that in like one platform. Do try it out and feel free to kind of, like, please give us feedback. The promo code for this is like academic 50. You can get, like, use that to get 50% discount on the pro plan. Um, yeah. So yeah, I think that is pretty much it, like, for me. So in conclusion, like, we know that AI is kind of, coming. It is like, the dot-com wave in the 1990s and 2000s. Now we should embrace it, and we need to kind of, tailor it to our advantage. We should use it as researchers. We should be kind of, use it to empower our work rather than trying to kind of, replace us. It should help us save time, right? But we need to make sure that we are still investing a good amount of time in understanding the output from these models, in reviewing the output of these models, and then integrating it with the work that we are doing, right? So like, even though it might save us time in doing some groundwork like admin tasks and, like writing the literature review, but if we have a literature review generated from an AI system, we would need to invest at least some time in reviewing it and going through it, and then integrating it with the with the piece of writing that we have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is it from me. Yep.
Yeah, excellent. Lots of people are asking for tools, but I think if you go to our YouTube website, Gohar, would you please state that? We will be posting a very detailed video that was done by David, I think, Santandrew from Sheikh Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence. And he showed us how different tools for every section of writing could do a pretty decent job, down to writing, and how you could make sure that you still remained sort of non-plagiaristic. And I am very averse to using that, because AI so far is unable to be detected. There are some things you can do, the human eye can do to detect it, but there has been no tangible AI detection tool, right, Ali? perhaps you can come on and we can see you again. But at the end of the day, we always remember that as faculty, largely, our problem has been plagiarism, irrespective of AI or not. And that's not an issue of the technology, it's an issue of our integrity. And I think that is where the bottom line is, that we have to ensure that we develop character of integrity where it is internal to us and is a motive for doing anything. So please, that is what we need to sort of work with. And I wonder if you see the poll. I do not see any takers on the poll. Please, we have over 200 participants with us. We would love you to also address the poll. Gohar, I do not see any people, and the webinar is spelled wrong. I think it's NAR. Great session. Thank you. Thanks. We should use AI as a personal assistant. Absolutely. Use it as a research assistant, actually, and then write your own. The research poll was missed. No, we are not talking necessarily about research tools here. We please, Gohar, share our YouTube channel so people can access our AI YouTube recordings. There was those having issues with Mr. Ali being too fast. Can we replay the YouTube recording 2 times slower? Ali, there is your answer. Problem solved. Absolutely. I love that answer, Zaira Mamoor. Could you please post a link for that video? Gohar, I do not, you don't seem to be responded. Please write. Thank you. Can AI be used for data analysis? If yes, how? Please elaborate. I think that has again also a take been covered in our AI session, which talks specifically about tools for different types of tasks. So please look at that. This was a session about more about research ethics and what are some of the issues you will face and you should be aware about, and what are some of the things you can do. And I think the most important thing is to actually put up learning assignments that are AI free. And you can do that. How do you assess how do you give assignments? There are lots of things that nobody is responding to the poll. Gohar, could you please put up the poll again? I think there is a problem.
Dr. Zia, can you please end the poll, stop sharing, and then I will be able to do that. If you can just stop.
I have stopped sharing. There is no, where is the poll? Everybody is asking. So
close
please.
it. Just close the tab as well.
Yeah, please do and set it up again. And please do give in the chat our YouTube channel as well. Join the community for happening WhatsApp chat. Oh, somebody has got scientific events happening virtually. And so there it is. Kindly share the poll. We are doing it right now. Ali, I do not see. Are you with us? Ali, I think, has again dropped out because of his connection. We do not see the poll, Gohar. I'm sorry for that problem. There were very good chat conversations happening. Is there something else that you would like to comment? Please do so we can. Yeah, Muhammad Ali Chaudhry, we do not see you. So please, can you see the poll now? I can't unmute. Gohar, could you unmute Ali, please? I am here. And Muhammad Ali also says he can't log in. If you log in with the same, I think you should be able to log in. No poll again, many. Yes. Did you see the poll? Al-Ikhwan University in Ifrain can see it. Yes. Done. Yes. Done with the poll. Superb. Gohar, please will you see that Ali is able to join us?
I made him
He's unable to join. Ji?
He's the co-host. He can unmute him. itself.
Yeah, I'm here now. I'm here now. Sorry, I was in here, but I couldn't unmute myself. Right,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, yeah, Gohar is very good for doing mute all button. So I must have done that. So we can see the poll. There are quite a few satisfied people. We have something like 192 with us. We had over 200 with us throughout the session. And somebody gave a very good, I don't know if you heard it, Ali, that if you play his video recording 2 times slower, you'll be able to hear what he said. So next time we'll have you do video record a session and play it slowly. So that's the answer to your American, I think, education and stuff where you, and I think accent also becomes a major problem across different countries. We have a very distinct accent,
Yeah.
and it could be difficult for people from other places to understand that. Gratitude, Mr. Ali, and the host of the sessions too. Bless, yes. I'm trying to keep abreast. American University, Cairo, thank you. Uzma Mazar, but due to his speed, he was able to complete his session on time. See, there is a positive there too. The poll questions are available. The submit button is not activated. Gohar, you're going to get a lot of issues today. Please tell Mr. Ali to share his PowerPoint. We will share that with you for sure. Please, we will share it with the video recording to all those who have registered. Thank you so much. And then Mr. Imran from University of Peshawar has posted a WhatsApp community where they share what's happening. And there are so many WhatsApp communities. I, for one, am not going to join. I'm going bananas trying to keep pace with the groups. And thank you so much. Very informative. I think we'll end the poll now. Thank you. And we are 3 minutes ahead of our closing time.